for the town.
When you or someone you love is dealing with a medical emergency, time is precious. It can be a matter of life and death.
Mercy Flight of Western New York has been in the business of saving lives since 1981, and over the past 35 years, they have successfully transported more than 25,000 patients.
We've got a short video, a dramatization of just what happens out there in this important service to our community.
How was school today?
It was good.
Did you play volleyball?
Yes.
And how's your serve coming along?
Not so good.
I think we should work on it this weekend.
Amy's birthday bash slumber party is this weekend.
Is your homework done?
No.
Is your room clean?
No.
That was the deal we made. If you...
Fire Control. I got a two-car motor vehicle accident with entrapment. Fremont Lines requesting Mercy Flight 5 respond to the location of 13915 White Street.
Can we get a hold of it? Lauren? Hi, Lauren. My name is Katie. We're going to take care of you, okay?
Mercy Flight Colonel, Mercy Flight number 5. 02-minute ETA.
We need to stabilize her and act ready. Man, tell me your name.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
We have possible head trauma.
Okay, very good.
Line reporting landing zone insecure.
She's presenting severe head trauma. She's drifting in and out of consciousness.
Okay, very good. I'm going to wait. Go ahead. You have your mommy out your car now, okay?
Mercy Flight number 5.
Very good.
Mercy Patrol, Mercy Flight number 5 on 325. Clearance for Children's Hospital. Mercy Flight number 5, 12-minute ETA to your rooftop.
Hang on, Lauren, just a few minutes before we land. She's losing consciousness.
10-year-old female patient involved in a motor vehicle collision. Vehicle rollover required a 20-minute extrication on scene.
Well, that's a very powerful message. With us today from Mercy Flight of Western New York are Scott Wooten and Dr. Joshua Lynch. Welcome, Scott. Doc.
Thank you.
Wow, that was really hard to watch.
Well, it's a glimpse into what happens in the real world. You know, a lot of people don't think about it. Some people think about, you know, you get into an accident and I'm going to bend some metal. And you know what, the insurance company is going to give me a hassle about my car and whatever. It's more than that. You know, I mean, you know, the people can get hurt, and it's not just property damage. And that's all too common. in this world. You know, I've covered a lot of that in my career as a news photographer, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of experience with what goes on in Western New York and the necessity for that magic hour transport. I mean, you know, people who are severely injured really need to get to an emergency facility quickly.
Phil mentioned that magic hour. So, Dr. Lynch, can you tell us what is that magic hour? What does that mean?
So some people call it the magic hour, some people call it the golden hour, and essentially that's the time frame that the time frame between when a patient is injured and when they really need to be at a hospital in front of the trauma doctors and kind of starting to get care. And as you can imagine, that can be a challenge depending on where someone gets injured. In Western New York, we have the opportunity to have very diverse geography, and getting people from the far ends of Western New York to where the trauma doctors are and the emergency facilities are can be a long distance.
And so Mercy Flight actually cuts down that time, and with Mercy Flight, folks who are severely injured can be treated within that magic hour. And my goodness, that is the difference between life and death.
It certainly can be.
And tell us, we started off right with questions about Mercy Flight, but first let's back it up for a minute. And Scott, tell us your role with Mercy Flight.
I'm the Vice President of Finance.
So that's important. And Vice President of Finance, Mercy Flight is a not-for-profit organization.
That's right. That's right.
And I think that's important for Western New York to know that Mercy Flight is a not-for-profit organization.
Yeah.
And what that means for the cost of operation for Mercy Flight.
Right. So as a nonprofit, we accept donations, obviously, from this wonderful community, Western New York, which is incredibly generous. But what that allows us to do is keep our service rates comparatively very low. Every dollar that's donated to our organization stays right within our organization. We don't have external shareholders. We don't have any external parties really at all. We're completely autonomous. So that allows us to remain completely patient-focused, both in terms of the care that we provide, but also financially. We can keep our resources right here, right in Western New York, right at Mercy Flight, so that we can continue to improve our service.
And so, of course, people can donate to Mercy Flight and get that ever-elusive tax write-off.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to point out that you are a very large not-for-profit, but as large as you are, the salaries that are paid out of the as a not-for-profit are so very proportionate. No one is paid a huge salary out of all of this money that's being donated to you.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
That's very true. And as you get to know our employees, you get to see a common theme, and that is that our employees are there, largely out of the goodness of their hearts. We do try to maintain the most competitive compensation packages that we can, and we think we do a pretty good job getting creative and finding ways to reward our folks. But yeah, that's true. Buffalo Business First ranked us this out of their recent All About Nonprofits, the 56th largest nonprofit in Western New York. Also in that same publication is a list of compensation for the highest paid employees at those nonprofits. And it's very telling how very far down on that list any Mercy Flight employee is.
And Dr. Lynch, tell us your role with Mercy Flight.
So I'm the Vice President of Medical Operations and the Assistant Medical Director for the air and the ground divisions that we have.
Okay, so a lot of important guys sitting here on our stage, Phil. A lot of important Mercy Flight fellows. So you, I know Mercy Flight that you cover quite geographically. You guys are like everywhere. Tell us where you fly, where you go when you're picking up individuals to bring.
How far does your service extend?
So our basic service area is for our helicopter transport is 8 counties of Western New York. So we go out as far as about to Monroe County and south down to Pennsylvania. We do also transport quite a bit within Pennsylvania and occasionally into parts of Ontario, Canada. But the air ambulance, the helicopter side of things, the primary area is that area there down south, we've got bases in Olean, Batavia, and in Buffalo.
All over Western New York.
Yeah, that allows us to cover quite a bit.
I didn't realize until you gentlemen came in that Mercy Flight is more than helicopters.
Right. You have a jet as well, a Lear.
So we're the only EMS operation in Western New York that has the ability to transport patients by ambulance, helicopter, and airplane. And through a partnership with Thunder Run Aviation, we are fortunate enough to have the use of a Lear 31 jet, which is incredibly fast. To put it in perspective, you can get from Buffalo to New York City in about 28 minutes, if the weather goes well. So we're very lucky to have all of those modes of transport available to us.
And you've got, what, 5 helicopters?
We do.
And are they, some of them are based at Buffalo International, the others are spread out around the area?
That's right, yeah. But Batavia base, which is just between Buffalo and Rochester, and then down in Olean, right near the Pennsylvania line.
Now, how do you decide where a patient is to go once you've picked them up? Is it a medical decision purely, or is it, a specialty, for instance?
Some of the cases are obvious. For pediatric trauma, most of the patients go to Children's Hospital, and other cases are not as much. So believe it or not, a lot of the time, if the patient's able, the patient makes the decision, or their family, or their friends. And sometimes that decision is made with some education from our crews on the scene. But oftentimes, either the patient or their family kind of makes the decision as long as it's appropriate where they go.
How many trauma centers are there in Western New York?
So we have ECMC in Buffalo and Women and Children's Hospital, which is the pediatric trauma center. And then Strong Memorial is a trauma center out in Rochester. There's a trauma center in Erie, Pennsylvania too.
And how many events have you attended or picked up patients every year, for instance, on the average?
What's our average?
It's about 1,200 per year, about 1,200 helicopter transports. And that includes, as the video showed, the motor vehicle accidents and those types of trauma situations.
We're talking an average of 3 or 4 a day.
Right, and also interfacility transfers, which we do quite a bit of, and that is a patient presents at a smaller regional hospital with a situation that determines they need to get somewhere else for an appropriate level of care. So we'll transport from those smaller regional hospitals to a larger hospital that's able to provide that care.
Now, helicopters are fantastic machines. They're very, very difficult, not difficult, but expensive to maintain. So I'm sure that's something that is a main concern, the expense of running the aircraft. But they're tremendously versatile. They'll land almost anywhere.
Right.
Do you ever have a hard time finding a place to land when you're called out to an emergency?
We work on a very regular basis with our partners on the ground, so police, fire, ground EMS agencies, and through that, kind of with our communication center, we can always figure out a place to land. And if it's not right at the scene, then we'll utilize a ground ambulance to transport the patient to where the helicopter lands. But the pilots that we have can literally land in a parking space.
Now
It's unbelievable.
You talk about these helicopters, that they're this tremendous piece of equipment and all that goes into running them. Do your patients have to be concerned about getting a bill?
No. The short answer is no. What we do, obviously, is we do bill insurance. In the situations where a patient is underinsured or uninsured, we work very closely with them and are happy to do so. We're not out to put financial hardship on top of a medical hardship. So we work very closely. We're try to be very considerate and compassionate for the folks in Western New York. We have a charity care program that we call it. It's a financial assistance program for those folks that are uninsured or underinsured that face a fairly substantial bill because it is a costly service. But we ascertain sort of what makes sense for them, and we work with them to create a payment plan or frankly write off a large portion of that balance, knowing that we don't want to create a financial hardship. We're not in the business of billing and collection. We're in the business of helping
saving
people.
lives. You're in the business of saving lives. Years ago, my nephew was run over by a car. He was actually run over by an SUV in Jamestown, and Mercy Flight came and picked him up and brought him into Buffalo to Children's Hospital. And that golden hour, you all saved his life.
We're very honored to have that capacity, and take it very seriously. We strive to do our best every day, day in, day out, just for those types of circumstances.
You're a blessing here in Western New York.
Thank you.
But not only Western New York, you can transport anywhere in the country.
Right.
And did I read that sometimes you'll transport patients back to receive care at home? So back from even, say, as far away as Florida, because even that can be a hardship, can it?
Right, absolutely. If you know, you say a person that lives in Buffalo is on vacation in Florida and they fall ill, and this has happened a few times fairly recently, they'll get in touch with us knowing that we have that capability of the fixed wing transports to be brought home, to be among the facilities that they're familiar with, to be among their family.
Is there a lot of red tape in situations like that, or is it pretty straightforward?
No, it's pretty straightforward. The fixed wing program itself, there are always a lot of variables, but we have a very competent staff and work very closely with the hospitals and the patients themselves too to sort out all those variables and make it happen.
Now, I used to fly in helicopters in Los Angeles, and even in that weather, we would get grounded, you know, once in a while because of the low, you know, low IFR conditions. It must be a challenge, especially this time of year in Western New York. How often are you limited by the weather?
Yeah, unfortunately, this time of year, you're right. We are limited more regularly by weather than we are in the summer. You know, it's just a matter of kind of hoping for great weather, hoping for flyable weather. When it's not, we do try to offer up our services in other creative ways by hopping on board a ground ambulance. We actually do have a ground ambulance wing, if you'll call it that. We serve Genesee County, the village of Springville and town of Concord, and the town of Niagara just recently with ground ambulance service. So we have a way of getting our very dedicated and very highly trained staff out to patients, even when we can't fly.
Well, you guys are the best of the best. If you say so.
We certainly try. We certainly try to be.
As a chief financial officer, you're talk about health. How healthy is Mercy Flight?
Well, that's probably the biggest challenge for us is making sure that obviously that we maintain sustainability, but at the same time not be a burden to the people of Western New York financially. So it's a fine line, and it is very difficult to walk. But again, I revert back to the generosity of Western New York. I mean, being located here is an immense blessing for us because the people here are so charitable, frankly.
And how can the people here donate to you?
They can donate to us by going to our website, www.mercyflight.org. They can connect with us on Facebook, or they can do the old-fashioned mail a check to 100 Amherst Villa Road in Buffalo, New York.
Well, when it's a matter of life and death, you can't put a price on that. And, you know, the people, I mean, they're for the grace of God.
Yeah.
You know, so everybody should understand that this is a service that is essential in Western New York, and we should all support it.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, Dr. Lynch. And thank you for being with us today. And this time of year, it's the time for giving. And what a better service to support than one that's helping to save lives here in Western New York. And here's the information on how you can donate to Mercy Flight of Western New York.
Visit www.mercyflight.org or call 716-626-5808. We'll be back right after this.